All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So today we are going to talk about the entire Harrow Prime Access. I have actually been having a really good time with this, and I think it's one of the best Prime Accesses that we've actually had as an overall package, which is surprising because we're all pretty used to the Scourge being pretty terrible. However, I think the Scourge Prime has actually shown itself with the Nell specifically, to be a valuable thing for kind of where Warframe is at now, as opposed to when the Scourge originally released. So we are going to go over the weapons first and then over Harrow, starting with the Scourge. Now, if we just look at the stats of the Scourge, things haven't changed very much, which is really weird. The reload is shorter. It has, technically they multiplied the critical chance by 5. But 10% critical chance really probably not going to get us very far, although you could maybe build around it. And we get, a little more damage. Like we're, up to 80 from 70. We get 5 extra damage on the radial attack. It's okay. But this weapon is pretty similar to the regular variant. Mostly, this is just going to be a huge amount of status wherever you need it. And in addition to that, of course, its gimmick is being able to throw it, and then it puts an aura on a bunch of enemies for you to get automatic headshots whenever you fire within these large bubbles that it puts on the enemies, which turns out to be more useful than you might think. So the build for this is pretty simple, and this build is honestly wasting a slot just because you can just do this with no Forma, because this weapon comes with 4 polarities, with 3 Vs and a dash, which lets you just fit this. Of note on here, you can absolutely remove Primed Firestorm because it's not necessary. It's just nice to be able to hit more enemies in a group at once. And Terminal Velocity can just go into the X list slot if you're willing to invest the Forma. And you can put like a lot of different things in there. You can use Galvanized Aptitude if you want like just the single target damage to be higher. Of course, this won't work on the radial attack. You could just, you could put in a Bane to make the statuses, like especially like heat and stuff, better. There's a bunch of different things you can do. You could put the 2 crit mods in here. You could actually go into like that crit realm, and that stuff's fine too. But I found this, like we're using Amalgam Serration, of course, as well, just for the sprint speed, and a little bit more damage is fine. This is more than fine as just a tool, because you're mostly just going to be throwing it, and if you need to throw some corrosive procs on something for one reason or another, you have the capability to do that. This weapon is also a fantastic candidate for just throwing on your primary dexterity. If you're going to be using melee weapons a lot, then you can just get that extra combo duration and really not have to worry about it. So that stuff's all great. I think it's a really good weapon as a tool for pretty much the express purpose of combining it either with Pistolier or with, of course, the Nell Prime, which came out with it. Now, the differences between the regular Nell and the Nell Prime are more severe. They gave it more fire rate, so that's great. Plus 25% fire rate. They doubled the critical chance up to 40%. They gave it kind of their baseline of a crit multiplier, which is very good, and they doubled its status chance up to 10%. And it got 30 more base damage, which is pretty good. That's a lot of stats to add to a weapon, and the Nell was already pretty decent. So whenever you do this to the weapon, it becomes kind of a monster that can definitely do Steel Path content, but it is, of course, a single target weapon, technically, and it is a very high, let's call it high effort play style if you're going to be zoomed in all the time. But with the Scourge, it allows you to use this weapon as a fucking drive-by machine gun, because you can just throw the Scourge and then just pop Nell shots and not have to worry about it, because you're gonna get a headshot if you even mildly aim, and then it's a fully automatic machine gun that's gonna kill everybody. For that, we are using this build, and there are a few adjustments to this build that you can make depending on how you want to use this weapon. If you want to absolutely like maximize your crits, you can actually go Galvanize Crosshairs into the Anemic Agility slot here, and that is extremely valid. That's an incredible amount of crit chance. And you're going to be red critting like crazy if you're going to put this in. Super valid. If you don't need this fire rate because you have a fire rate arcane, which we will be using, you can put in primed heated charge. That's a lot of elemental damage. Also, adding heat is, of course, always good. that is also super solid as an option. This weapon, I would generally suggest secondary Deadhead, but Merciless is also an option. And the reason I say that is because for the reload speed is pretty much all of your downtime. So if you're someone that really feels bad when you miss with the Knell, in terms of getting, of course, that first headshot, this is going to help mitigate that feel bad. And I think it's totally valid, especially for star chart enemies, because you really don't need the damage that this weapon is going to be outputting. And then, of course, for this, you're getting that plus 30% headshot multiplier, which is a very large amount of damage added. And for firing at full auto, you might want the less recoil. So this is a few options, and I'm pretty happy with it. And then let's talk about Harrow. So Harrow is a very greedy Warframe that in most cases I would probably advise more solo players to look at, which might be surprising because he's billed as a support Warframe, and he does give things to his team, technically, as long as he's doing all of the work. So you don't need a team whenever you're playing Harrow to his fullest capability. Therefore, he is a good solo Warframe. For that, I have subsumed Thermal Sunder on him. I do think that Thermal Sunder Harrow is generally going to be the one that is going to be most convenient for most players to use. This is great for ESO, regular Sanctuary Onslaught, just like regular like mission running and farming, doing bounties, etc., etc. The list goes on and on for what this is good for, because it gives Harrow access to a very large range AoE just kill ability. And whenever you combine it with Thurible, you generate a massive amount of energy, because every single enemy is going to be giving you like 20 energy back for an ability that costs 12. And you're killing like 4 or 5 guys every single cast and just spamming this as much as you possibly can and just eliminating fields and fields of dudes. And that's pretty hard to compete with, and I think is definitely better than his second ability, unless you are going to be going into Steel Path. If you are going to be going into Steel Path, Harrow has a lot of options, because Thermal Sunder doesn't scale into Steel Path. Not at all. Not even close. Can this weapon kill fodder enemies up to like level 200? Absolutely. Not weapon, but ability. Absolutely. This will kill fodder enemies up to like level 200. It will absolutely do that. In Steel Path, will it do that? Absolutely no way, no how. It will still heat proc, so it is technically armor stripping, but most of the things that we use heat proc anyway, so that's not really necessary. So instead of this, what you can do very easily is just switch in Adaptation, so that you get, of course, you know, your buildup of damage reduction as you're throwing your 1 out and just staying alive that way. Eventually, you're going to have to throw your 1 less and less and less whenever you're in Steel Path and keep those shields up less and less and less. This puts you at really solid stats for doing a lot of different things, whether you want to go Pillage, Gloom, just like any number of different good abilities. If you're going to go melee focused Harrow for some reason, throw War Cry on here. It'll be fine. Like, there's many, many different things that this stat spread is capable of. And it's really malleable for what you want, especially because if you don't need this much strength for whatever you're going to throw in, you can drop secrets, add some more duration if you need that. You can just switch straight to Augur Message. Lots and lots of options are available for Harrow if you're going to be going into Steel Path solo with him. Also worth noting, because Harrow's energy economy is amazing, you of course don't need Energize. So we've just got Aegis on here. This is mostly just comfy because whenever it procs, you can't die, except for Toxin procs, of course. And then we're going with Arcane Velocity because, of course, we are focusing on the Knell. And on critical hit, which is all of the time, every shot that we fire, we have a 90% chance to get 120% fire rate to pistols for 9 seconds. So you can see why you might not need the fire rate mod on the Knell if you're going to be using this, as this is a very, very powerful arcane that is usually reserved for Mesa because it does work on her peacemakers. But yeah. This is just a Zero Forma Harrow, extremely usable, very accessible, able to do Steel Path. When, of course, when you switch off of Thermal Sunder. And it can do Steel Path even on this, but you just wouldn't want to. And it's pretty good. Like, the most I would probably want to do here is switch in an aura polarity here, just so I can switch between, or switch to one of the better auras, really, whether that's like Brief Respite or Growing Power or what have you. But this build is really capable of just doing all regular game content extremely easily, and that's helped very much by the buff to Harrow's 1, which has really actually helped out Zaku a lot as well, for those of you that have seen my Zaku build where he uses that, or they use that, rather. And it's good stuff. So yeah, the Scourge is mostly going to be thrown. I will just show the damage of the Scourge real quick just by itself, so you can see that it still does kill these enemies. Like, they're level 185. But even with this build that is like really focusing on utility, as long as of course you kill the ancients first, because otherwise they're gonna soak up all the status, this really doesn't have very many issues just killing these dudes. Like, it's still totally reasonable for killing them. It's really fine. Like, this is totally reasonable. Absolutely a-okay for a weapon that's mostly being used as a tool. I would actually probably put this on the side of being impressive because it has that corrosive base, which really allows it to get through the heavy armor pretty simply. So if you want to use the Scourge, it's definitely not the worst choice you could ever make. And of course, the status spreading on Steel Path can also be useful. But the way I would really suggest using these weapons together is like this. You, of course, just throw it in. And then you have the aura on all the enemies. And then you just fire away. Also, Harrow's 1 is a one-handed ability. So you can just keep shooting while this goes on. And it's pretty effective. Pretty effective to just do drive-bys with Harrow. He's pretty into it. Yeah. The Scourge you can either pick up by just running and going to get it, or it does have a timer where it will just come back to you, so you can just periodically throw it. Because in most cases, if you just aim at head level with the Nell, its buff's going to go on for quite some time. But it's definitely not too difficult to just walk around shooting all of the bullets in every direction and kill a lot of guys. Of course, you can just combine all of these things together. One enemy was hiding somewhere. Combine all these things together, and then you get the buffed Harrow one, which is going to just freeze all these enemies. Then we'll throw some heat procs in here and just, switch to the Scourge, toss this down, just start shooting or whatever. Get knocked down randomly. Throw this out, get another, 1,000, 2,000 shields or whatever. It's a very safe playstyle. And just kind of do whatever you want. Of course, you can just throw on Harrow's 4 at any time, which is going to make you completely invincible. And then, of course, give you a hilarious crit boost. Yeah. You just kill them all. Just kill them all. I really need to stress, though, that the improvement to Harrow on his 1 is really massive. From this far away, just stunning that many enemies. And this does have some terrain restrictions, of course. From here, it doesn't go anywhere. But if you're in the air, it'll slam you down. It stuns a lot of guys. This can really lock down large areas, and it's especially useful in the open worlds now. So that's really nice. Yeah, I'm really happy with the overall Prime Access for Harrow. It's a high-quality, legitimate playstyle that feels good to use. The Scourge gives you a nice lazy option, so you don't have to just be ADS all the time with the Nell, and that's great. So yeah. Way happier with this than I thought I was going to be, because I really wasn't hyped for the Scourge at all, but it turned out to be a good time. So that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you